"It is impossible to say what is true and what is false," he says, "when all evidence has perished and only the memory of a tale remains." Those words are echoed today by modern historians who struggle to separate myth from reality when it comes to Atlantis, the legendary island civilization first described 2,400 years ago by the Greek philosopher Plato. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato paints a picture of a powerful island nation that existed in the Atlantic Ocean around 9,000 years before his time, roughly around the year 8000 BC. He tells of a utopian society of wise and noble people who lived in peace and prosperity until they became victims of their own hubris and were ultimately destroyed by a devastating flood. The only survivors, according to Plato, were the ones who escaped to the coast of modern-day Morocco with their treasures and their shame. Was there any truth to Plato's tale? Could there have been an actual civilization that was wiped out by a natural disaster or rising sea levels? Or is Atlantis nothing more than a fantastical story intended to convey philosophical ideas? In this episode, we'll explore the latest discoveries related to Atlantis and attempt to answer once and for all whether it really did exist. In order to locate Atlantis, we need to start with Plato's description of it. And it's important to note that he never claimed that the island existed somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. The name Atlantis simply means islands of the sunrise, which could refer to many different places. However, over the centuries, people began to associate Atlantis with the Atlantic Ocean. One reason for this was the publication of a book called The Atlantis, an essay on the island of Plato by a man named Roger Bacon in 1652. In this work, Bacon argued that Atlantis had to be located in the Atlantic Ocean, because if it didn't, then Plato would have been wrong, and that was unthinkable. So for centuries, most people believed that Atlantis had to be somewhere in the Atlantic. In the early 19th century, a German philosopher named Alexander von Humboldt proposed that Atlantis might have actually been an island in the Caribbean Sea. This idea was intriguing because it aligned with Plato's description of the island as lush vegetation and warm climate. But it wasn't very popular because it conflicted with the generally accepted view at the time that the Americas had not been inhabited by advanced civilizations before the arrival of Europeans. In 1882, a journalist named Ignatius Donnelly published The Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. In this book, Donnelly argued that Atlantis had actually been located somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea, and that its destruction had caused the destruction of Minoan civilization on the island of Crete. His theory was based on similarities between Plato's description of Atlantis and the geography of the Mediterranean. He also pointed to similarities between the myths of Atlantis and the myths of other ancient cultures. Donnelly's theory was more popular than previous theories because it aligned with the current understanding of human history. At the time, scholars believed that human civilization had developed independently in different parts of the world, and that there were no connections between the ancient cultures of the Old World and the New World. Therefore, if Atlantis had existed, it had to have been located in the Mediterranean. In 1960, a Greek architect named Dimitrios Sitaris proposed that the island of Santorini, which had been devastated by a volcanic eruption in the 17th century BC, was actually Atlantis. Santorini is a small volcanic archipelago in the Aegean Sea between Greece and Turkey. The largest island in the archipelago is called Thera, and it was here in the Bronze Age that the Minoan civilization flourished. Santorini was once home to one of the largest and most advanced civilizations in the Mediterranean. Its people were skilled traders, and they had established colonies all over the Mediterranean. They were also great builders, and their palaces were some of the most impressive structures of their time. But in the 17th century BC, the Minoan civilization was devastated by a volcanic eruption on the island of Thera. The eruption was one of the largest in history, and it caused widespread destruction across the Mediterranean. According to Plato, the island of Atlantis was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night, and it just so happens that the island of Santorini was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. Also, according to Plato, the island was once a paradise, but became a desolate wasteland after being struck by earthquakes and inundation. And it just so happens that the island of Santorini was once a paradise, but became a desolate wasteland after being struck by earthquakes and inundation. However, despite these similarities, most historians still reject the Santorini hypothesis. One reason for this is that the eruption of Thera did not occur around 1500 BC, but rather around 1650 BC. Another reason is that the Minoan civilization did not disappear completely, but rather continued to flourish in Crete for several centuries. However, recent underwater archaeological findings may change all of that. A joint American-Canadian team of researchers recently discovered the submerged ruins of a Bronze Age city in the Aegean Sea. The city is located near the modern-day Greek island of Amorgos, and it dates back to around 2000 BC. It was built on the remains of an earlier settlement that had been destroyed by an earthquake. Then it was abandoned around 1500 BC after a volcanic eruption. This discovery is significant because it provides tangible evidence of a civilization that was thought to have been purely mythical. Furthermore, it was revealed that the city was once part of a vast network of trade routes that connected the Mediterranean to the Middle East and Central Asia. The city's strategic location enabled its inhabitants to control the flow of goods and information between these regions, making them incredibly wealthy. The existence of this city lends credence to the idea that Atlantis could have been a real place, a Bronze Age city that was located on the island of Amorgos or somewhere else in the Aegean Sea. But it was destroyed by natural disasters, earthquakes and tsunamis that caused the sea level to rise and eventually swallow the island whole. However, the question remains, was it the Atlantis of Plato's description? Or was it something different entirely? As ocean archaeologists continue to explore the depths of the Aegean Sea, they may one day uncover more evidence that will help us piece together the puzzle of Atlantis and separate myth from reality once and for all. Maybe one day artificial intelligence can sift through historical data about Atlantis to reveal insights that have eluded scholars for centuries. Until then, the search for Atlantis continues, and with it, our fascination with the lost civilizations of the past. Mysteries like Atlantis have the power to unite us across cultures and time. They serve as a reminder of the incredible mysteries that surround our world and the vastness of human history. By exploring these mysteries, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and expand our understanding of the world around us. They inspire scientific inquiry, cultural connection, and the public imagination, reminding us of the wonder and beauty of the world we inhabit.